I'm just consistently out of breath, so.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Sum It Up. I'm Joelle Martinez, President and CEO of the Latino Leadership Institute. And I am so excited about today's episode, not just because I believe that we're going to talk about a topic that is really relevant and important, and one that I hope will resonate with many of us, but because this will be the first time that Harry and I are joined by a very special guest who will not only exemplify today's topic, but really share her own stories and her own experience and her own perspective. And I honestly cannot wait to get started, because we're going to be talking about why the path to success is rarely, let's be honest, really never a straight line, especially when you layer in culture, gender, societal barriers, our lived experience. The journey can become much more complex, but I like to believe also a lot more powerful. So, to kick us off and to make sure we have plenty of time for today's very special guest, I'm going to turn it over to my friend, my partner, Mr. Harry Hollins, who's joining us today from the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. And I will not hold that against you today.
Buen dia, everyone. Well, first of all, I actually want to welcome you to the summit. And like Joelle said, you're actually our first guest, and I can't think of a better first guest to have. I know that we connected initially through one of our programs at Latino Leadership Institute, our LEAD program, which is an accelerator for Latino growth stage led companies. And you have been an advisor for both of our cohorts. You've been an amazing advisor, and I know that because the entrepreneurs you worked with just had incredible and splendid things to say about you. And I know we've talked before, and so I just kind of describe you as a rock star, entrepreneur, advisor, author, keynote speaker. The list just goes on and on. And as understand, you're also going to be a mom, so we're going to have a lot to talk about, and we're going to dive into your background and your accomplishments. But I first want to start with kind of our form of an icebreaker. Give you an opportunity to give a quick introduction of yourself and your background. But as you do that, at the end, I would love for you to describe yourself through music, through a song. Joelle and I love music. We talk a lot about how powerful it is. It's a communicator. It's, it just says so much. It elicits emotions. So I'd love to get a quick introduction of yourself, your background, and then tell us about what song that either instills something in you, drives something in you, brings out an emotion in you.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be your first guest on Sum It Up. And all those nice things you said almost made me cry just now because I'm pregnant and emotional, and I might cry during this conversation. But hi, everyone who is watching. If you don't know me, my name is Ashley K. Stoyanov Ojeda, best known for my best-selling book, Jefa in Training, which came out 3 years ago. It's the first ever Spanglish guide to launching your business. The second edition came out earlier this year in January, which we're really, really excited about because only 2% of published authors are Latina. And of that 2%, we don't really actually know how many are Latina women. So it's just a real honor to be able to get the chance to have a second edition out in the world. And I am also a multicultural business strategist. So I work with underrepresented entrepreneurs and change makers to help them grow their businesses and tell their stories. I work with a lot of nonprofits to be guest advisors and coaches for them. I do a lot of work with the state of Oregon to help underrepresented change makers who have not really been given a great great shot at entrepreneurship to validate their business plans. And I also have a membership community for Latina entrepreneurs called the Jefon Training Community, which is just an amazing group of Latinas who are just powering through breaking barriers in their industries. And I'm so proud of them. And this is new, so I almost forgot to mention it. I just launched a podcast called Authentica, and it's really about representation and the importance of that, especially in business media. I think we can all agree that most business podcasts are not by someone like me or like us. And so I really wanted a chance to showcase entrepreneurs and change makers who are redefining success and leadership in their own way. And I'm very grateful to be given that opportunity by Todos Media, which is a new Latino owned media company here in Portland, Oregon. To answer your icebreaker, so normally I would say the song Soy Yo by Bomba Estéreo, because that's my walk-up song. However, I am trying to do something new and tap back into my musical self because Harry, you probably know this, but I don't know if Joel knows this, is that I actually started in the music industry and I am a songwriter myself. So I'm going to just like shamefully promote one of my own songs that I wrote a really long time ago. And it's called This Is Me. And it's really the story of like how a shy young girl from Queens who like was really terrified of everything came to be this person who just is me now.
I love, oh, wow. I love that so much. And I want to stay with that. I want to kind of keep that song as a guide. And we wanted to kind of rewind from there, the story, to understand your path to, where you are and how you arrived at where you are today. We always talk about the importance of the journey as much as it is about the destination. And I know Joelle has a ton of questions for you and so much that she can relate with you. And if I've learned one thing, it's when I'm in a room with powerful Latinas, I need to step to the side, and I'm going to do that right now so Joelle can dig more into your journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, that song, I mean, I want you to share that if you're willing to, because I think about a conversation I had with a really good friend earlier this week, profound. And she said, your destination is not always determined by your start. And we think about that often, right? Is that, we think somehow. And so tell us a little bit, to Harry's point, tell us a little bit more, taking a step back, what were some of these key moments in your life that defined your journey, that motivated you, that kept you motivated? And, in particular, were there these moments that you had to pivot? You changed, something happened, the world, the universe told you something and you responded. So tell us a little bit more about the journey in general.
I mean, I think that that's so true. And now if I sit and I put all the pieces together, right, I see where all of the connections are and I see how everything has led me to what I'm doing right now. The same way how I imagine in 10 years, I will look back on this moment in my life and be like, well, all of this was preparing me for whatever it is I'm going to do. Because to be quite honest, if someone asks me what's next, I'm like, I'm gonna pop this baby out and then we'll see what like I don't know. There's so many opportunities, right? And just so many different avenues. But like I was saying, I started in the music industry really young in New York City. I'm born and raised New Yorker from Queens. And I started playing music really young, probably like around 9. And then I started on piano. And then at 12, I picked up my dad's bass guitar. But prior to that, I was writing like poetry, song lyrics. Like I always liked to write. Like that was my therapy, and it kind of took a lot of different forms. And so growing up, people would ask me, what do you think you want to do? And I'd be like, well, I want to write stuff. And so then I got into music and I was like, okay, then I think I want to be a songwriter. And I learned a little bit about the music industry. I also started going to school when I got to college, I started going to school for communication. So I took a lot of journalism and PR classes. and that kind of got exposed to that world. And at the same time, I was working at a music venue in Times Square, like one of the best jazz clubs ever. It's called the Iridium. It's still around. It's amazing. And I got to meet a lot of incredible legends there. On another occasion, I will tell you how I embarrassed myself in front of Garfunkel. But anyway, story for a different time. And I was there, and I became friendly with a really famous journalist who worked for Rolling Stone. And I kind of was shooting my shot, and I said, "Hey, like, do you happen to need an intern, this summer, next fall? Like, I'm at the point in school where I kind of need to start doing that, and I would love to be able to, like, I love to write and I love music, so Rolling Stone makes sense." And he said something to me like, "Don't waste your time, sweetheart. Rolling Stone only hires old white guy writers." And I dreams crushed. I'm sure he meant it in like a "don't worry, like you'll figure out something else" kind of way, and not in like an obnoxious mean way, but all of my dreams were crushed in that exact moment. And so that was the first time that I really felt like, oh, well, I had all my eggs in this basket. I thought I was going to be a music journalist. Rolling Stone seemed like the way to get into this. What am I going to do now? And so that same day, I started looking at other internships, and I found an opening, and I got an offer from a record label to be in their PR department. And that's kind of when I started to see, like, well, I could be on the other side of things and learn about PR. And if I want to be a famous musician, I should probably learn a thing or two about marketing and PR. And so that's kind of how I started in that world. And when I graduated school, I was doing a lot of freelance work with startups, and also still trying to do music, pretty regularly. I was in a series of bands and also released things solo. And then I moved across the country to Portland, Oregon, because I wanted to find myself. Didn't really know what that meant at 23 years old, but I do now. And ultimately, that led me to really breaking out of my comfort zone. And I started a monthly showcase for women songwriters at a small venue in town. And very quickly, that grew into something that became my first socialpreneurship venture, which was my nonprofit that I founded and ran for 5 years, called Women Crush Music. And we hosted ongoing events for women songwriters across 16 international cities. And we grew very quickly in that first year. Long story short is I made a lot of really great things happen during that time. We made a lot of impact, but I also made a lot of mistakes because I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just, the only thing I knew how to do was promote and build community, and get people to show up to our events, which was great, but the foundation of that organization was never really super set. And so there came a time, I actually just posted about it on LinkedIn a couple of days ago. I'll never forget this day in my life. It was 2019. We'd been around for a few years at that point. We had our first South by Southwest showcase. Over 1,000 people came. We had artists coming from all over the country, sponsored everything. Like, it was probably one of the best days of my life. But when it was over and people started asking me, so what's next for the organization? I had a full-on mental breakdown, like a full-on mental breakdown, because I had realized that I had taken the organization as far as it could go, the way that it had been running at that point. I did not know what a financial plan was. I mean, I knew what it was. I knew that I needed to have one, but we didn't. Like, I didn't really know, how to like deal with the board. I didn't know a lot of things. And so I started looking towards every book and podcast under the sun about business. And that's when I realized how much of a gap there was in, business books and media, because all of these books were written by someone who was nothing like me. And that's kind of when I had my first light bulb moment of, well, wouldn't it be great if someone like me could write a book that teaches you all of these things that you need to know about starting any kind of business? And then I had another light bulb moment when I was like, wait, why can't that person be me? I've
Mhm.
mistakes. And shortly after that, I was working with in the beginning of COVID, once my nonprofit started to kind of fizzle out because we lost all of our sponsorship basically overnight. Live music organization, don't know when live music is going to come back. It was very tricky and it was a lot to handle. But around that same time, everything happens for a reason. I connected with Marivet, who is the founder of the Mujerista, one of the biggest media platforms for Latinas, and she asked me to help her build her online community. And so in that process, I was connecting with all of these different Latina entrepreneurs, and I realized that they really needed a resource like this. And they were all coming, somehow they all ended up coming to me for advice. And that's when someone even started calling me their business hada madrina, their business fairy godmother. And that's where I got that nickname originally. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's time to revisit this book idea. And life just kind of happened and it got put on the back burner until in 2020, I accidentally met an editor of my publisher. And we just got to talking. I didn't know who she was. And she was like, I really like you and your vision. Like, are you writing a book? And that's kind of how it all happened. And then HIFAN training was born, and that was that.
Amazing.
And that's really like how we got here, right? It's been 3 years of just making sure that the book gets to the people that it needs to get to. And my business really took off after the book came out in a lot of different ways, right? More clients, more things that I never thought I'd be doing. Like, I never thought I'd be doing corporate speaking, and now I've done a lot. And it's been really incredible. I never thought that I would have a video podcast, and now here we are. And so it's just, it's been a ride.
I'm going to turn this over to Harry, but I want to amplify something, Ashley, in your story that I think is really important, and one I know not just other leaders and business owners, but particularly women in these spaces would probably resonate. That your story kind of started with the Rolling Stones, that it won't be you. Don't waste your time. It won't be you. And then as you do your twists and turns and you continue to ride up this journey toward your summit, you came to a realization through your own experiences, why can't it be me? And today we hear your story that it is in fact you, and you kind of determined your own destiny, learned from mistakes and failures, which is very much part of success. But I just want to amplify that, to go from it won't be you to why can't it be me to it is me, and I wear that with pride and authenticity, and now want to share that with everyone else. That journey, I see my own journey reflected in that story, and I just want to thank you for sharing it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Harry, I know you got some thoughts, some ideas there.
Yeah, one incredibly powerful story, and that's what we want to share. Because I think when we hear each other's stories, there's different parts of it that we can all connect with, and quite frankly, we can learn from. You know, given the industries you've been in, you went, from music into business, and you're a keynote speaker. You're in a lot of spaces. I would be pretty confident to say probably the spaces you're in, you may be the only woman in that room, and you may be the only Latina in that room. I would like you to speak about, one, what does that feel like? How do you navigate that? And how do you continue to succeed, knowing that a lot of times, unfortunately, that's the environment you're in?
I think that my music industry experience really prepared me for business in this way, because the amount of shady things that happen in the music industry, especially when you're a young, cute 19-year-old girl performing at all these bars with all these industry men who think that, just because they're in a position of power, they can do whatever they want with you, that really, was scary. And it taught me a lot, though, about like boundaries, and
Mm.
also just like they're gonna think something of you anyway. So like, just go for what you want, you know? Like, I think that journey really, really taught me that. Because there was one time in particular, I had a all Latina rock trio. We were so good. We were about to blow up, and then unfortunately our drummer got deported, and it was really sad. But yeah, Claudia, she's amazing, but she's thriving in DR and she's doing great. But we're really happy for her. But it was heartbreaking at the time. But I remember we were performing at this really well-known venue in New York, and the promoter that booked us um, originally was not going to pay us anything because he said something like, "Well, who's gonna come see an all Latina woman rock band?" And I looked at my bandmates and they were, they were kind of like on the shyer side, like language barrier, like they didn't really want to say anything. And I said, "Step aside, girls, I got this." And I leaned into him, and they were just like, "What are you doing? He's not going to let us perform." And I was like, "I don't care. He already thinks this way of us anyway. Why am I not going to say anything?" And I think that there are a series of those moments of, again, like Joel said, like people telling me it's not going to be you, it's not going to be you, that when I stepped into this new role of being an entrepreneur and working with businesses, I was just kind of like, my motto in college, which is really embarrassing to admit, was like YOLO, like just go for it because you only live once. And I hate that I just said that, but sometimes I look back on that and I'm like, you know what? I need to embrace some of that mindset again because I'm way too scared right now to do what I want to do. And I was not scared back then. And that's how I got here. I didn't get here by being scared.
No, I'm so much of this is bringing up so much. As women, we navigate so much. Like we navigate being in spaces where we are not reflected, where our judgment is under consideration. I tell this story, Ashley, when I was working at a firm and they had asked me, looking at everyone around the room, they'd asked me to make their coffee for their meeting. Huge mistake. I'm not even allowed to make my coffee in my own home, let alone like one of those industrial machines. But it's really hard. It's really hard to be in those spaces and places, to be subjected, at times to what you're even explaining on the extreme, unsafe, completely wrong situations, to the microaggressions or, the patron, kind of expressions that come our way that really could have the potential of limiting our value and then affecting our confidence, right? And you have this mindset. And whether you're in business or in leadership, your mindset is one of YOLO. Your mindset is one of, if I give my power away to others to determine my value, right, then I may be limiting myself. And you've been able to take the power. You've been able to make sure that you know your value and accept nothing less, which is something I tell a lot of the folks that we work with. But is there a secret to that? What would you offer other women or other younger leaders or people who find themselves in these situations as a way, if that isn't how they're wired to think, what are some of the tricks that you've been able to leverage in order to know your value and accept nothing less?
YOLO. No, I'm just kidding. That's not my advice. I would say what really helped me actually is creating an alter ego. I know that sounds crazy, but because I was performing as an artist, it was something that was really helpful to me because growing up, I was not I'm not an extroverted person. I learned that about myself very quickly while I was on my book tour. Like, I love speaking in front of people, I love performing, I love interacting with people, but when I'm done, I need to like shut myself in my room for like 3 days and not talk to anybody. But like I had to create this alter ego that I then ended up becoming. And that really helped me. We were just talking about this on my podcast yesterday, but like, they say like you have to see yourself as something to be able to become it. And so the more we tell ourselves like, okay, well, I want to be this like badass jefa who is confident on stage and confident setting boundaries and confident delegating and confident, negotiating and things like that. And then we just start acting like her. That eventually becomes who we are. It's a crazy, like, psychological amazing thing that our brain can do. And so if you're listening to this right now and you're like, what do you mean? Let's talk. Like, let's talk, because I definitely think that it's a real thing, and that's why artists do it,
Yeah.
right? And it works. It works.
Yeah, Harry, I'll let you jump
Yeah.
in here. But actually, we do a lot of neuro leadership and neuroscience work with our business leaders and our leaders in general. And there's actually a science behind what you're talking about. And, a lot of our personal limitations are these narratives that we carry around. And sometimes I talk about the invisible backpack, right? Like all the things we're carrying around that we've put there and that others have put there, and it weighs us down. And so these alter egos, this it's also called modeling and projecting and some of these other things we do. I mean, I stare in front of a mirror when I have to like prep myself up for a really intense meeting or a presentation to rehearse. You rehearse. It's a rehearsal of that, and there's a neuroscience behind it. So it's valid. I get it. I think it's a very effective tool. One of these days, you're going to have to tell me more about that alter ego. But Harry, I know I'm taking over here. This resonates, right? You and I talk about this a lot in the spaces and places that we've navigated through our career. These tricks that we've had to put into our toolbox in order just to navigate our own career success. What's resonating for you?
Oh, Delta, I mean, hearing your story, Ashley, and coming from the music industry, could completely relate to it. I was an athlete, and so they always talk about athletes do that. They'll talk about as they come out of the tunnel, they're a different person onto the playing field, and they come off and take off their uniform. There's something it's real, like Joelle said, there's neuroscience to it, and it can be healthy. And I think it's really healthy when you recognize that, but you can also let that go, and you can find your environment where you get to be yourself, and you're absolutely at home because you're in a room full of introverts. So don't worry, Joelle and I are classic introverts, so we can relate on a really personal level. So that's really powerful. I want to make a pivot here, and I want to talk about the world that we're in right now. You being an entrepreneur, you being a Latina, you faced a lot of obstacles. And we know all the data out there, especially when we're talking about entrepreneurs, career opportunity, lack of access to capital, tools, resources, networks. We talk about it all the time. We have the hard data. It's well documented. But on the other side of it, we are continuing to push and excel. We Latinos are starting more businesses than anyone. And actually that's being led by Latinas. They've started more businesses, I think, in the last 18 months than any group in the United States. So that's a story both of potential, action and potential. And also, we continue to see roadblocks that we have to face. So we still have a lot of work to do to even start to unlock the potential of our community and our entrepreneurs and our small businesses. But with that in mind, what changes do you think need to take place for us to start to unlock our economic potential, our small growth potential? What do you think needs to change? What do you want to see change, especially here in the United States?
Oof, that's a loaded question, Harry. And how much time we got? I mean, obviously the powers that be need to obviously be a little bit more supportive of our communities, but if we don't see that happening, we need to take charge, right? More of us need to support each other. More of us need to be trying to get into these positions of power where we have the money to be able to invest in our communities, support each other, buy from, Latino owned businesses, and just actually, a lot of people say like, oh, my community, but like, are you actually in community? Are you actually acting that way? Because I feel like a lot of us, if we stop to think like, when was the last time I did something for someone in my community, we'll probably be like, oh, well, actually, I don't know. Like we all get so, and it's not because we're bad people. We just get caught up in our day-to-day lives that like it can be hard because we're all just trying to keep up with things that are, everything seems harder right now, you know? But I think if we keep that in mind, where we just have to be community first and continue to see the potential and not give up on each other either. And I know things are hard right now for everyone, and they're probably going to be hard for a little bit. We can't give up. I share something personal. So I found out that I was pregnant the day after the presidential inauguration, and that was some kind of emotional roller coaster, guys. I'm not gonna lie about that. And I knew everything that was about to change in the country and how hard it could potentially be for our communities. And I had to stop and think, well, I don't have time to be stressed right now. Like I don't have time to sit and wallow and give up hope, because it's not just about me anymore. And for that reason, I think I've been saying a lot to my clients, like I don't know if we'll see the direct impact of what we're doing right now in our lifetime, but I think the future generation, like this little jefecito that's in my belly right now, maybe he'll see it. And so that's kind of what's been keeping me going every day. And I think that more of us need to just see the vision, right? See the vision, support each other, and look for opportunities still, because there is still a lot out there. It's not all hope is lost, and I hope it doesn't get to that point.
No, definitely not all hope is lost. And I said this yesterday when I was with a beautiful room of diverse founders and entrepreneurs. My hope comes from conversations like this and having people like you in our orbit and so many others. And everything you just said, Ashley, it's not just something that Harry and I and our team believes. It's what we know. We know that we're stronger together. We know that when we come together, we climb together. And we know that our numbers, our power, economically, socially, all the things are the future. I mean, there's nothing that's going to change that destiny. However, we say this a lot, that what we do now is going to have an impact for generations to come. And I actually think, and I said this on Harry and I were on another podcast together earlier this week, and we talked a little bit about this. I actually think it's our time. I believe it's our moment. I mean, when your back is against the wall, when you're hanging on the ropes, this is exactly when you innovate, you build, you come together, you envision what the future will look like, and then you start working towards it. And I believe, and will always bet in this community. I believe in us. And you today and sharing your story helps further that belief. It fuels me. It makes me excited. I'm thrilled to know that you're out there supporting our entrepreneurs and sharing your wisdom with them. And, I just think your journey and your story reminds us that success is not linear. We learn from mistakes, we heed advice, and then we push back the really terrible advice, and we make our own path anyway. And I hope those listening today really do find hope and know that you're out there and that you're doing amazing work, and your books, your podcasts, all resources to help them on their journey. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being part of our network and for sharing your story. And I'll let Harry close this out. But thank you so much, Ashley, for everything you're doing. It matters. Keep going. You're not in it alone. We're going to get through this together, and we're going to come out stronger than ever.
Thank you, Joelle. I appreciate that.
No, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And your story is incredibly inspirational. And what you just said around the hope is, and Joelle, I talk about this, and I'm sure when you're talking to your, working with a client in the space as you are, is we don't have time to wallow. And that's why I love hope, because it's a noun and a verb, but I love the verb part of it because it requires action. And honestly, I can tell you, I wrote down a few things as you're talking. You gave me hope. You reminded me. I get hope, and I'm sure Joelle too. I get hope by seeing other action, and I know things are going, and then I know I can't go in my room and sit down, but I know others in our community are on the move. So we always want to leave with that positive outlook, that hope also takes action. You've obviously been taking action your entire life. And again, want to just say thank you for joining us, and congratulations on what, as Joel said, it's the most important job in the world. I have two, although I always couch it correctly. My wife delivered them. So when people say you had a baby, I said, let's be honest. Yes, I'm a parent, but I bow to the power of women. So, so with that, just thank you. And you just, it's the most wonderful time of your life. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Harry. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Get her book, check her out on podcasts, and we'll see you in a couple weeks on the next episode of Sum It Up. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.